Today, we're taking a look at the Armstrong Whitworth AW-23. This aircraft was notable for a number of reasons, the two most important facts being that from this aircraft we got the Whitley bomber, and in addition it marked the first significant breakaway from the methods of construction the company had used, which had remained virtually unchanged since the development of the all-metal siskin back in 1923. The AW-23 was developed to meet Air Ministry specification C26/31. This called for a twin-engine monoplane, one that would be used primarily in hot and tropical climates, and one that must, if needed, fill the role of either a transport or as that of a medium bomber. Alongside numerous requirements, which included a loaded weight of 18,000 pounds, or around just over 8 tons, and a range of 920 miles, or 1,480 kilometers, the aircraft was also meant to be easy to maintain and repair in the field under harsh conditions. This latter condition was of particular importance, as the availability of spare parts in certain regions, especially in India, would be limited at best, and non-existent at worst. And because of this, an aircraft using radial engines was preferred, as they tended to be easier to maintain in harsh environments. Eventually, the Air Ministry would accept 3 design proposals from various manufacturers to be developed into prototypes. There was the Armstrong Whitworth AW-23, the Bristol Type 130, and the Handley Page HB-51. Designed by John Lloyd, who was the chief designer at Armstrong Whitworth, the AW-23 represented a rapid departure from his previous works. The fuselage was fairly standard, being built up from a structure of steel tubing and covered by a skin of doped fabric, but pretty much everything else was new and innovative. The most notable design feature was the use of light alloy rather than steel for the construction of the main spar of the cantilever wing. This was a box structure with flanges of sheet metal, corrugated span-wise, with webs of the same material corrugated vertically. This structure was then stiffened by an internal bracing of steel tubes. The forward part of the wing was clad in an unstressed alloy sheet that extended to the rear section of the spar, and after that the wing was covered in doped fabric. The result of the new internal box design, which was Lloyd patented, was an exceptionally strong wing structure, but it did come at the cost of increased drag due to the wing's thickness. This would, however, be partly offset by the use of newer and more powerful engines that were being developed by the company as well. Another first for Armstrong Whitworth with this design was the use of a retractable undercarriage, which consisted of 2 independent single-wheel units, which folded hydraulically upwards into fairings behind the engines. These engines were a pair of Armstrong Siddeley Tiger 6s, which put out approximately 810 horsepower. These initially drove 4-blade wooden propellers, but they were very quickly swapped out to 3-blade variable pitch units not long after the aircraft was completed. To prevent an unnecessarily large tail fin and rudder, to deal with takeoff and landing, and for general flight stability as well, a new twin-fin design was employed for this aircraft as well, which also had the benefit of allowing more headroom for the tail gunner, who would sit in a new, specially designed experimental turret. Designing, building, and testing these new innovative features took time, and it would not be until 1935 that the prototype would be ready to fly. This was not a timeline exclusive to Armstrong Whitworth, however, as the competing designs by Bristol and Handley Page also weren't ready until the same year. In fact, all 3 would fly within just a few months of each other. The AW-23 flew for the first time on June the 4th, and at the end of the month, on the 29th, it made its first public appearance at the RAF display at Hendon. During the tests, the aircraft performed well, and was described as being pleasant to handle, but 2 incidents would mar an otherwise smooth series of manufacturers' trials. The first occurred on the 19th of March 1936, when the port engine decided to fail just after takeoff, when the aircraft had barely reached 200 feet. With full power applied, and with the test pilots being very thankful for the switch to variable pitch propeller blades, the prototype was nursed around in a long circuit before landing. Unhappily, the hydraulic system for the landing gear was actuated by the engines, and the free-spinning propeller on the now dead port engine didn't deliver enough energy for sufficient pressure to build up in the hydraulic system, and the port side undercarriage folded up just after impact. Thankfully, the landing speed had been very low, and the damage to the portside wing was relatively light. The prototype was soon flying again, but then another incident occurred when a large section of the doped fabric of the fuselage tore itself free from the structure. Campbell Ord, who was the test pilot, was surprised to find that, despite several meters of fuselage fabric wrapping itself around the tailplane, he was actually able to maintain complete control and brought the aircraft down for a safe landing shortly afterwards. Though the aircraft had performed well outside these incidents, it was the Bristol Type 130 that would be selected as the winner for this specification, and it was ordered into service as the venerable Bristol Bombay. The AW23 was saved from immediate scrapping for two reasons. One, parts of its design were being used in the development of the Whitley heavy bomber, and two, it was being selected as a testbed for the development of aerial refueling. In late 1936, the AW23 was given a civil registration and lent to the Flight Refueling Limited Company as a tanking aircraft. Its adaptation to the role involved the installation of an additional fuel tank in the fuselage, a hose reel mounted over a hatch in the fuselage floor, and the fitting of a large perspex panel in the side to provide improved visibility for formation flying. In the summer of 1937, the aircraft gave a demonstration of the refueling process to officials at Farnborough, after which it was used with Imperial Airways to test day and night and poor weather refueling techniques for its long-distance airliners. This culminated in successful trials over Southampton, where the AW23 was used to refuel the flying boat Cambria on the 28th of January 1938. The initial technique used for this was a little bit dicey. In a very broad nutshell, the receiving aircraft would trail out a weighted line from a refueling aperture in the tail. The tanker aircraft would then position itself to the lower starboard quarter of the receiving aircraft. The tanker aircraft would then fire a line with a grapnel forward into the parabola of the weighted line, and once contact was made, it was simply a case of using the lines to haul across a refueling hose. What could possibly be simpler? Happily, more sane approaches to the art of aerial refueling were soon made, but this process was used at least several times during Atlantic crossings made by flying boats in the service of Imperial Airways during the summer months of 1938. By that point, however, the AW23 had been retired from refueling duties, being replaced by Handley Page Harrows, and it was put into a storage unit at Ford Aerodrome in Sussex. There it spent the rest of its days until it was completely destroyed in a German bombing raid in 1940. Though gone, its legacy would live on in the Armstrong Whitworth Whitley, a heavy bomber that took on the AW23's wing design and modified it slightly with some interesting results. But that is a story for another day. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and a big thank you, of course, to the patrons. Now, work is currently underway on some of the longer videos that I've been working on, two of which are rather long indeed, and one of them should hopefully be up this weekend, if not early next week. It all just depends on how long it takes me to finish editing everything. A big thank you, of course, to our Wing Commander tier patrons, our highest tier members, and a warm welcome to Louis Coleman, who is the newest member of this special group. Now, a couple of people have asked about the Patreon Q&As. Yes, it is coming back. I have kept everyone's questions. I'm just waiting until my office is in a state that I can actually answer the questions with the webcam going, just because some of the questions require me showing a few things on camera rather than just overlaying images, and hopefully that'll be something that gets done this month. So thank you for your patience. And as always, thank you for your continued support, and I'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.